Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there. But let's now move on to my favorite team in the NBA and my favorite team in the Western Conference, the Sacramento Kings. And they haven't been terrible in the past couple games. No, they're
not. The Orlando Magic were.
It's called a joke, Ricky. Of course, Orlando Magic's my favorite.
Yeah.
They're 9 starters since they traded Serge Ibaka away. Well, Terrence Jones, so 10 again.
Still 10 stars.
Still 10
can't
again.
not be 10.
But yeah, we're moving on to the Sacramento Kings. The trade for Buddy Hield hasn't been terrible. They haven't looked awful without DeMarcus Cousins. You kind of see a spark a little bit for the future. So looking at Buddy Hield, is he, and I'm going to go to Dave first because I know Ricky's answer, is Buddy Hield the cornerstone for the Sacramento Kings moving forward, Dave?
What? You tell me Steph Curry?
Steph Curry
is not. How is this even a question? Of course, he's the cornerstone for this team. No, seriously. Like, is there any way, like, as the young Steph Curry, that he's not a cornerstone?
Well, I mean, you look at it. They have 2 top 10 picks. So do you think a guy that they can draft could overcome him?
No, you're going to draft guys that complement him.
They're not going to draft another shooting guard. That's the thing. I mean, actually, Vivek could do whatever he wants to, but
yeah.
I mean, he did draft Papagiannis.
Yeah, when they had 4 centers already.
Yes.
He also drafted Stauskas and Ben McAdoo.
Just log jam in the back.
Not Ben McAdoo.
No, I think that he is going to be their centerpiece, and this is kind of weird because last time around I was talking about the Suns and how I don't think Devin Booker is going to be their centerpiece.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be one of these young up-and-comers, but I think that Buddy Hield could be the centerpiece on this Kings team. I think he's kind of fallen into good graces in this organization. Like, the trade really helped him out more than it helped out Boogie. It looks like. I mean, Boogie's still doing his thing. No denying that.
That's kind of on the groove. The Pelicans.
Yeah, I think that Buddy is kind of opened up because this is such a team with, to be honest, no aspirations right now. It's just kind of like go out there and play and see what you can do. And he looks looser. He looks like he's kind of found his spot. And I think that he definitely could be a centerpiece for this team.
No, it's one of those things when you say centerpiece, I immediately get kind of like, okay, is he going to be the guy to will this team to playoffs? I'm just going to look at playoffs, not get ahead of myself. And it's one of those things where I'm hesitant, but I think that this Kings team can do what they might be able to do what they need to in the draft, depending on how the NBA rigs it and the ping pong balls fall. But I'm looking at Tankathon right now. And I mean, the 2 guys that they have in their mock draft, Jonathan Isaac and then De'Aaron Fox, perfect. Go get a 3, go get a 1, and they can build a round Buddy Hield and have him at the 2.
Well, right now you got New Orleans, who I said to make the playoffs, so that wouldn't be a 10 pick. But right now it's the 10th pick in the draft. They also got the 6th pick of their own. So looking at that, would you say a 1 and the 3 would fit Buddy Hield the best? Because right now you got Scale.
I think Scale's been a fantastic player this year.
Scale's been great in the past 10 games, 11.5 points, 6 rebounds. You look at Willie Cauley-Stein in the past couple of games, 11.4 points per game. Papagiannis hasn't been bad, 7 points in the last 10 games. And Malachi Richardson hasn't been anything because he's been hurt, but still he's some player that can come off the bench.
There's potential there.
Do you think they should go 1 and 3?
I absolutely agree with Ricky. I think that adding a dynamic point guard who can move the ball around is going to fit them really well. I think Isaac would be phenomenal. I mean, I like the combination of Isaac and Scal out there, and with Cauley-Stein, you're so athletic and so long that's going to create so many problems for other teams. Well, I think Scale's going to develop some better defense to his game, and this is just going to be. As much as we love to shine the Kings, I think they're going to be a fun group to watch going forward.
And to me, if the 3 that I'm looking at, Isaac's the one. Because the one thing we talked about a little bit last week was his versatility. Can play the 3, can play the 4, can even play the 5. And if you look at this Kings team, Dave likes Scale, but let's say Scale's not bringing it. Fuck it. We're moving him on over into the 4 spot, which would be Isaac. You could have Isaac play the 5. You can have him play the 3. So it creates that where it's like if Scale or Willie Cauley-Stein aren't bringing it, you can then bring in someone else to play the 3 and move Isaac to that other position. And like on the other side, that's why I just say draft Isaac and a point guard. Doesn't matter if it's Frank, doesn't matter if it's De'Aaron Fox. Get a point guard with that 2nd pick.
Well, looking at all of it, what player do you think fits best with the players that they currently have right now? Buddy Hield, Scale, Willie Cauley-Stein, Papagiannis, Malachi Richardson. what type of player do you think fits bet there? Do you think it's a ball-dominant point guard? Do you think it's a guy who can shoot?
I think it's a distributor. I honestly do, because I have a lot of faith in Scal's shot. Buddy Hield's been shooting over 40% from 3 since the trade, 48% from the field. Like, he is going to be their knockdown shooter. Scal is no slouch himself. I think that someone like a De'Aaron Fox, someone who is a defensive monster and his quickness will create opportunities for this team, I think that's absolutely the route to go with that one. So what do you think?
I mean, with me, it's one of those where it's going to be interesting, because right now, looking at Tankathon, at number 10, you might not have your pick of the litter when it comes to point guards, because let's be honest, Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball are going to be 1-2. You're not going to get a chance at them at 10. I mean, Dennis Smith, they have him at 5 to the 76ers. I would kind of lean towards I like Dennis Smith better, so I would take him. But if I'm looking at 10, a guy like De'Aaron Fox wouldn't be bad, because the way I kind of look at it is with Dave kind of being like, oh, Buddy Hield can be your spot-up shooter, kind of a little similar to what Kentucky did, where it's Malik Monk can be your outside shooter, De'Aaron Fox is your ball handler, passes out to him kind of a guy, and then you have Isaac who can play the 3 or down low for you, and you can kind of start. It's not a finished product, but you're starting to build this team. I see a lot
of potential there.
You're seeing the light over the horizon, the light at the end of the tunnel, but that tunnel's still pretty far.
See, I don't think you go with Jonathan Isaac. I don't think that's going to. I think if they go with 6 right now, and if they have the 6th pick, and say Dennis Smith's off the board, like Tankathon has him, I have Malik Monk going 5 and 6. Dennis Smith still available. So I said Sacramento would be going with Dennis Smith. De'Aaron Fox would still be on the board. He goes 7th to the Knicks. The last time I did this, obviously the standings have changed, but I think going with a point guard first, whether it's Dennis Smith or De'Aaron Fox, would be the smartest move, because of the reasons you guys are saying. The speed can really drag in the defenders, dish it out to Buddy Hield, and we've seen what he's been able to do, hitting over 40% of his threes in Sacramento, creating opportunities. That's what Derek Collinson's been able to do, Ty Lawson's been able to do when they're in the game. I think that's the smartest move, especially for a guy that's so younger and so quicker than guys like Collison. If you're talking about De'Aaron Fox and Ty Lawson, I think that's the smartest move there. Evan, when you go look at 3, I'm pretty sure Isaac would be off the board right there, because I don't think he's getting past a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves because of his defensive abilities. So then you look at that 10th spot, and they still have. Obviously, Tankathon's kind of messed up with what I'm saying, but I would still think Miles Bridges would be on the board, and I think that's where you would go with, because you have a guy that can shoot from the outside, Miles Bridges. He's not that effective from the outside, but open threes, he's not terrible, and he's such a big body going in that he can be so dominant. And I look at his ability. He is a guy that's 6'7", already has an NBA body, and you look at the guy that you're drafting in De'Aaron Fox, he's got the speed to kind of hide his size. You look at Buddy Hield, he's 23 years old. He has developed at least to an NBA body, isn't the greatest defender. And then you look at Miles Bridges, a guy that really doesn't need to grow into his body, already has his body, just needs to refine his game. You look at Willie Cauley-Stein, a guy that's been in the league for a while. I don't think that you look at this Kings team, and if they draft Miles Bridges and De'Aaron Fox, I don't think you can push them out of not being in the playoffs, because I think this team could be in the playoffs next year if they get. Look at the Western Conference. 38 wins right now. It gets you the 8th seed. You look at what Sacramento's been able to do in the sparks that they have had Buddy Hield. It looks like a team out there. And you see the athleticism that they have. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying that they can be a dark horse, or at least a team that could be intriguing, because you have speed, shooting, athleticism. I think it's a team that, and you also have size. I think it's a team that could be interesting. You know, I'm not saying Scale can live up to where he's currently playing right now. I'm not saying Willie Cauley-Stein will be playing up to where he was, but he struggled early in the season. This year, he might struggle again. But looking at the speed, the athleticism that you can bring with De'Aaron Fox, Miles Bridges, Buddy Hield, Scale, Willie Cauley-Stein, I think it's a very interesting team, because
that'd be a crazy young core.
Yeah, it's a crazy. I mean, that starting 5 is unreal. And that's putting you again where we talked about last year, where teams are building their big 3 through the draft or through trades. I think it's going to be a very interesting starting 5 that they have. And then you also have Papagiannis off the bench. You have Malachi Richardson off the bench. That's 7 players right there that can be very interesting for you if you're the Sacramento Kings.
They're all under 25, right? I mean, that's... Yeah,
Willie Cauley-Stein, 23. Yeah, he's the oldest one.
I want to throw something out here, and this is all what could happen in the draft. I know that, Sean, on your mock draft I'm looking at right now, you have Dennis Smith. Let's say he's not there. and let's say point guard is what they go with first, you go De'Aaron Fox. You have that guy then that can drive and kick, but most importantly to me is drive. Depending on either A, what happens, or if you have a pick between the two, I know it's one of those things where this guy might fit more of a stretch 4 than a 3, but his three-point shooting percentage alone could be considered for this. Do you think, because you only have him a pick off, do you think that, hey, we got De'Aaron Fox, we have the driving, do we go with Markkanen over Bridges to add some three-point shooting, even though we have a 3 and a 4 in Cully Stein and Scale?
Hell no. Hell no. You look at Markkanen, he is nothing but an outside shooter. And I understand your point.
You just spot him up there and drive and kick.
Yeah, but you look at that team, and it's going to hurt them defensively. Yep. You have Scale and Markkanen out there, you're screwed. You have Cully Stein and Scale, you can hide Scale's deficiencies on defense. Yeah. You put Markkanen and Scale out there, that's the worst defensive team I've seen, because Buddy Hield can't play defense at all.
It's like playing Ja, it's the same problem. He brings you a dynamic offensive game, but absolutely no help defensively. And
it's only one side, because Markkanen can shoot from 3, but he has no inside game. Ja's only an inside game and not an outside game.
Yeah, it's just a dynamic offensive player. That's unfortunately that's not who I would want to draft with that pick.
You look at Buddy Hield too. That guy can't play defense. So you have 3 players on your team right now, and that's starting lineup that can't play defense. I mean,
yeah.
Buddy can't play defense.
He's not great at it.
No, Buddy can't play defense. Scale's not that great defensively, and Markkanen's not that great defensively.
I think the big question for me is, what do you value more, the one of the 3? With their first pick, if they do get lucky and get like a 6, or if they end up at like 6'10" or 6'9", do you value the 1? Do you value the 3?
Well, it's gonna be 6 and 15 because Pelicans make the playoffs. But
of course.
It's the 1 because, again, like we've been saying, you need to create opportunities for Buddy Hield. And Darren Collison and Ty Lawson can still be effective players, and I don't know exactly their contract lengths, but I think they can still stay around for the Kings and still produce. But I think if you add a guy like De'Aaron Fox, you have a guy for the future, a guy that's under 20 years old, a guy that can pair with Buddy Hield, a guy that can pair with this young core. I think it would be too dumb to pass up with guys like that. You also look at a guy like Jonathan Isaac. We see so many guys that need the ball in their hands to score. This is a point guard dominated league. We look at the top 10 of point guards, and all of those guys are pretty much all-stars. I mean, it's so tough to make a top 5 out of point guards because there's so many good guys that can fit into that category. You look at a De'Aaron Fox, the way he can score, the way he can pass, the way he can drive, his speed, it's so hard to pass up to a guy like Jonathan Isaac, who's not that great of a three-point shooter right now, has a lot of abilities, but I don't know what his offensive game is. He's a great defender, but how much do you really care about that when you're in the Western Conference looking at when you're going to be playing the Warriors a couple times, when you're going to be playing the Rockets, when you're going to be playing teams that are so powerful offensively? I don't think a team like Sacramento needs a guy like Jonathan Isaac, where a team like Minnesota, who you have 2 phenomenal scorers in Wiggins and Cat, you need that defensive help. Where if you're looking at the Kings, you need offensive help. You need someone to create for Buddy Hield, because Buddy Hield's going to be a knockdown three-point shooter. So you need to get a guy like De'Aaron Fox, and I think a guy like Jonathan Isaac won't be on the board at a 9 or 10.
And that's the thing. Like, you asked me which position do you value most, and at first I want to say both, because I looked at the contracts. Ty Lawson's up this year, Collison's up this year, Tyreek Evans is up this year. However, I'm going to lean towards point guard. That's what you take earlier on, because one guy that they drafted last year that you'd still have around, maybe kind of mold him for that shooting guard or to help out there, Malachi Richardson, a guy that we really liked from Syracuse just a year ago. So, I mean, with me, like Sean said, De'Aaron Fox is the guy. He's the guy I like. Can drive in, dish out to Buddy Hield. And with me looking at the 3, I know, Sean, you said, well, I wouldn't go Isaac because of, like, the defense wouldn't be. I would actually look at that and go, hey, you know what? Let's get some defense. And it's a guy
who... You got Willie Cauley-Stein.
But it's one of those things where you can get the defense from the 3, 4, or 5, wherever you want to use them.
You're selling them on the versatility.
Yeah, but then versatility and defense, and then you can let Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox be your main points of offense.
If you're sold on Papagiannis, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Scala Bissiere, those are guys at the 4 and 5, 3 guys at the 4 and 5. I don't think you need that versatility to float between those guys. I don't think that really fits your team, because then Isaac is just pretty much going to be playing the 3, because you have a guy in Papagiannis and a guy in Willie Cauley-Stein. Those guys are your 5.
Would it necessarily be bad to have would it be bad to have I'm not going to say lockdown defender, but an amazing defender at the 3?
But then you can go get Miles Bridges, a guy that's better, that's more well-rounded, a guy that can go between the 4 and the 3 already, who's a smaller body. I understand that, but he can be an offensive force, a guy that can take off pressure from Buddy Hield. And if Buddy Hield's not hitting his shots, a guy like Miles Bridges that can take it to the rim, that's so big and needs to improve his free throw shooting, but isn't terrible at what he currently stands. I look at a guy like Miles Bridges, and I think he fits better than a guy like Jonathan Isaac because he can create for himself.
And that's the thing. What's going to answer this question? Free agency. Because it's going to be, if the Kings can, let's say, bring in a guy who has a little bit more offensive side, then sure, they might go with an Isaac and say, you know what, we got to get that defense. Whereas if they don't have that offensive guy, then we can have the debate
are you taking
Bridges
Isaac?
Or Isaac.
Where are you taking Isaac here?
I would, with me... I would take him with the second pick. I would take him with the second pick.
He's not on the board at 10 or later.
It's one of those.
He's not going past the Timberwolves.
And it's one of those things right now. If he's at 10, I think it's one of those things where he might be able to fall. Would he? No, but he might be able to, depending on the certain issues. We can go every team in the draft and go, well, you can draft this guy or this guy here and have the debate.
That guy's a Tibbs. That guy's a Tibbs player, and I don't see him falling past Tibbs.
It's possible. Anything is possible.
You look at a guy who they drafted
one
last year.
One of these days, I'm going to just ingrain that into your forehead.
You look last year, and I understand that anything's possible, but then you also say that, and it never happens. You look at a guy like Chris Dunn, who they picked last year, a guy who's versatile, a guy that can play defense. That's why they picked him. Why would they go away from Jonathan Isaac? I don't understand why they would go with Jonathan Isaac. And looking on that board, I don't think they go with Miles Bridges because you have a guy that already fits there in Andrew Wiggins. It makes too much sense for a guy like Jonathan Isaac who can play the 4, who is 6'11", who can play fantastic defense. I don't think there's a reason to go away from him because he helps Cat. He helps out Cat so much, and that just makes your team so much better. And if Wiggins does struggle, you can at least pick him up. And because he is so versatile, say you're playing a guy like Kawhi, then you can put a guy like Isaac on him, and then you can hide Wiggins' deficiencies on 3. I don't think there's a way that he falls past the Timberwolves.
I'm just saying there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
The chance is if Tom Thibodeau gets fired.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Well, there's a chance. Looking at Ricky Widmer, there's a chance.
But what you're saying is the best fit for the Kings would be a combination of Bridges and Fox, and you're saying...
Or I would say point guard and Fox. Point guard and Bridges.
Point guard and Bridges, and you're saying Fox and Isaac. If somehow the ping pong balls
not even just Isaac, just Fox, and then any small forward you'd get. Fox is the guy I would zone in.
Well, that's the thing I want to ask because there hasn't been a ton of hype about Frank playing overseas, but he's someone that defensively is known as a monster, and I could see this organization going with a Euro player rather than going with someone from college, and
kind of like how they went with Papagiannis.
I think they would, and I think that because of Fox's stock rising, I think he may be out of their area. I think that honestly they might end up with going with Frank at 10 if it lands at 10. That's a better fit for them.
But I think Colin Cowherd make a great point about why this Buddy Hield trade happened and why Vivek was so enamored with Buddy Hield because of his performance in the tournament. And that's when owners watch college basketball because of the tournament. So a guy like Vivek, who pretty much forced Vlade's hand to make that trade because he was so in love with Buddy Hield, saying, you're going to be on my team one day, and made it happen. I feel like he's going to watch a performance like a Malik Monk, like a De'Aaron Fox, like Alonzo Ball, and fall in love with what they did in the tournament and go out and get them over a Euro player. I think the Papagiannis thing happened because you look at that 8 spot. Why didn't they not pick a guy like Marquise Chris there? The guy wasn't in the tournament. He never saw him. But a guy like Papagiannis, a guy that Vlade probably heavily scouted. Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that Vlade really liked. So I think that he had the pull there. And you also look at the guy who fell behind him, Denzel Valentine. He was out early in the tournament.
I think if they get the chance to take Jonathan Isaac at 6 as it stands right now, and then they can go get Frank later on, wherever the second pick lands, I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
I think Frank could be interesting because you do have the versatility to...
Because that shows up your defense completely. Yeah. That's where I'm going with this.
I'm not too sold on Isaac. I'm not too sold on Isaac to the Kings. Maybe it's just because I think he's too good of a fit for the Timberwolves. And I think that it's just like a perfect match there. And that's why I pretty much always had Chris Dunn mocked to the Timberwolves because of the same reason. Yeah. And it happened just because you look at the fit. And I look at someone who looks at Jonathan Isaac, and I don't think anyone thinks that he's a monster or a stud. I don't think anyone saw Chris Dunn as a monster or a stud last year. They just saw him as a great player. I think
Isaac definitely needs to put on some muscle to contend down low and bang with the bigs. But
and
honestly,
I don't think people see the highlights
frame
of a guy like Jonathan Isaac and say, holy shit. I think people look at highlights of De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Miles Bridges and say, holy shit, like, look at this kid. I feel like owners and guys like, Vlade, I mean, these two guys are ranked bottom last in the ESPN rankings for management. I don't think these guys are, scouting like crazy. I think they have the idea of, all right, what were you able to do in college? Are you an exciting player? How do you fit this team? I don't think they're going through analytics and all this. I think it's a lot with the eye test with the guys like Vivek and Vlade. And I think you look at a guy like Jonathan Isaac and a guy who wasn't putting up a ton of points at Florida State, was a fantastic player, had some flashes, but a guy that isn't like jumping off the page, isn't a guy that's going to be leading an ESPN highlight. You look at a guy like Miles Bridges, though, you look at a guy like De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Dennis Smith, you look at these players and they pass the eye test for the Kings, and I think that's the biggest thing with the Kings is Buddy Hield passed the eye test, Willie Cauley-Stein passed the eye test, Nick Stauskas passed the eye test, Bennett McLemore passed the eye test, Boogie Cousins passed the eye test. You got to pass the eye test if you're going to be playing for the Sacramento Kings. I think it's the biggest thing. You look at Malachi Richardson, he passed the eye test for them in the tournament. Scala Bissier, he was 28th and a guy that was projected at 14. I think they see that and say, why not take a chance at a guy?
The value for that was just fantastic.
And you got to look at the eye test. I don't think he passes the eye test, Jonathan Isaac, for the Sacramento Kings, where again, like guys like Smith, Fox, Monk, all pass the eye test. And I think that maybe it's not the best way to draft, but I think it wouldn't be too detrimental to the Kings to do that, because I look at Bridges, I think he's a better fit because he can give you the versatility to go through the 3 and 4, but he's going to bring you more offensive power there. And I don't think he's going to be a terrible defender in the NBA. And then you look at De'Aaron Fox or Dennis Smith, I don't think either of those guys are going to hurt them. I think De'Aaron Fox is a better fit, but I also think De'Aaron Fox is a better player, and Dennis Smith might end up falling to them because I think NBA teams might fall in love with De'Aaron Fox's speed.
I want to throw out this, and this is me putting the tinfoil hat on a little bit.
You never do that, tinfoil?
Let's say the unthinkable happens, and I just started hitting in Tankathon to see if anyone below the Kings would jump up into the 3. And in this one, the Bulls did get the 3. Doesn't have to matter on that.
You said it wasn't going to happen.
Doesn't have to matter with that. But if, let's say, they fall, like in this one, they have picks at 7 and 11. Even if they fall to 11 and Isaac and Bridges are off the board, it's one of those things. Do they go Markkanen? Do you go another
Markkanen
name just thrown out there is, well, 11. I'm throwing it out there because that's Tankathon has him at 11. John Collins is another one to look at, sophomore out of Wake Forest. Do they go with maybe a TJ Leaf, maybe dip deeper into the power forward if they fall past that 10th spot?
I think Leaf could be a guy that can fit with them because he's athletic and he's pretty soft defensively, but he can shoot from the outside. And I think that's something that might help teams. That can bounce. I think TJ Leaf's a guy that can go to him. Again, I think you have to pass the eye test, and I think a guy like John Collins is just going to do dirty work and down low. I don't think it's going to be a guy that passes the eye test. John Collins is a super freak athlete. I mean, you look at that whole team on
He's a good
Sacramento
player,
Kings.
He'll get you boards.
He is, but again, Vivek and Vlade aren't thinking boards. They're not thinking. They're not thinking old school. How Vlade used to play down dirty, down low. They're playing.
That's the thing I think that hurts the Kings is after Bridges.
I think they got lucky on Buddy Hield, to be honest with you.
After Bridges and Isaac are gone, they're like really the next best small forward to me is OG Anunoby, but he's coming off of an injury. And then the next one that I look at is Malik Bridges Malik Bridges lower in the draft, and then like Dylan Brooks and Justin Jackson. No one that you're going to say, I want to take them at the 11, 12.
Jackson, I think Jackson's been moving up in people's boards.
Yeah.
He's
but is he going to be a 11, 12 pick?
He could be a late teen.
Draft Express has him in the lottery. I don't think that could. I wouldn't put it past the Kings.
But I'm asking you, would you take him at 11 or 12?
No, God, no. That's why I had him at 24.
Yeah.
But would I put it? I also had Papagiannis as a 40th pick, and they picked him at 13. The second round,
yeah,
they picked him at 13. So
if you like him, you like him.
Exactly. And I think you got to pass the eye test, and I feel like Justin Jackson, with what he's done in the Final Four, can definitely pass the eye test. I think a guy like Zach Collins out of Gonzaga can pass the eye test because they're currently watching him. I don't think Thornwell's going to pass that test, but a guy like Bell, Brooks, I think that could be guys that can go to the Kings just because they passed the eye test. And again, I'm not bashing on the Kings or trying to bash on the Kings. I think they got lucky with what their team is currently set up with, but I don't think they can. I don't think they're going to piss that opportunity away.
It's all part of the plan.
I think the Kings will become more interesting once the draft order is completely set. And I think again, with the possibility of them losing all their picks, I don't think it's going to happen. But again, they can ping balls fall the wrong way. Yeah. Their pick ends up at 11. The Bulls get that pick, and if the Pelicans that falls the right way, they get a top 3 pick. Kings don't have a pick, so it can happen.
All this hope.
It can be taken away, or they can get 2 top 5 picks. If that Pelicans goes to the 5 and the Kings end up winning the lottery or something like that, it can happen.
Yeah. Well, the 76ers would have to win the lottery.
Right.
And the Lakers it would have to be Sixers, Lakers, Kings. Would have to be.
Full tinfoil on. Yeah, to be honest.
There's I think it's going to be more interesting.
Do you think they're going to nail it though? Do you think that? No. Do you trust the Kings? No.
I kind of want them to. But I want them to make the right picks
as well. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think nailing it's so tough when you have 2 picks in the top 10, especially for.
You got 2 shots not to miss.
But then also you have 2 shots to miss.
If you nail on a top 10 player in what is one of the deepest drafts we've talked about,
are we saying they're gonna hit on one player? I think they can hit on one player. Hit on both. I don't think they. I
think 1 out of 2 is not bad.
1 out of 2 is good, but I'm saying if
you get a starter and a role player, I mean I'd be okay with that.
What if
it's going to be super interesting?
What if this situation happens? You lose the Pelicans pick; they're at number 2. So our order right now is the Suns are number 1, Pels are 2, Celtics are 3, then Sixers, Magic, Sixers, and then the Kings at 7. If you only have 1 pick. Do you go with?
If they got 1, I'm going small forward.
Point guard.
Nope.
Because at this one they went point guard and went Frank.
I don't totally
over De'Aaron Fox.
I think it's close, but I think that because of how easy it is to get an average point guard in today's NBA, that I go for the small forward. I go for the project.
If you get an elite one like De'Aaron Fox, I think it's tough to pass up.
Potentially elite. We've watched. Again,
I look at that boy. And
I'm a fanboy of him. I know what he can do, but I also know how inconsistent his shooting has been. His shot is not right.
You have a guy like Buddy Hield, though.
Yeah,
I understand.
Let's bring it full circle. Who did we fall in love with after his tournament? Buddy Hield.
Well, you did.
Yeah, no.
We were mostly shitting
I'm saying
on you.
We as in like
because he's older than Bradley Beal.
I wasn't the only one.
Don't be you 2 commenters crumping us all in.
No, I'm not saying like we as in all of us. I'm saying I wasn't the only one to fall in love with him.
You and Vivek.
Well, it's like Cowherd said in that same video. Right before the tournament, he said, you're going to fall in love with someone. I'm starting to think that De'Aaron Fox is that guy I'm falling in love with. And part of me is like, you know what? Maybe there might be a chance that he misses. I hope not.
The guy that I fell in love with.
He looks good.
The guy that I fell in love with, Miles Bridges. And I think a guy like him, and you paired the 2 guys we're in love with, De'Aaron Fox and Miles Bridges.
Dave fell in love with Sabonis last season.
Yeah. Spot on.
He hasn't been bad.
I know. I'm just saying that's the guy that Dave fell in love with in the tournament.
And if anything, I've completely cooled off on Markkanen. I think that it's mostly exposed on a national level of his deficiencies. So I agree with the tourney time is a time to overanalyze a small segment of games and try to not do that. Try to not overanalyze it.
But how many times has it been wrong?
It's also a good question. Also, you got to think about it this way. It's a weird time where the scouting for teams is different in the tournament because it's one of those things where, especially from weekend 1 to weekend 2, I have a full week to game plan against this team to where if it's just in between the same week, I got that one game, that one day to kind of game plan for it. So it's a weird kind of a game plan where if you're coming in off of second round of the Sweet 16, I've had a week to prepare for you.
Just because you mentioned that, I think that's the reason why we see so many play-in teams win their matchups because they have 2 days.
Yep.
They have 2 days to game prep that 6th seed, and then you see a team like USC beat SMU because SMU doesn't have enough time to game plan. If you have a bad coach, then you're screwed.
And that's the big thing. And I know this isn't going to turn into. I just want to mention the tournament really shows who the best coaches are in college football or college basketball.
Without a doubt, I think Frank Martin's
the coaches that can make the changes win.
Yeah, there's I think four coaches right now currently in the Final Four are all fantastic coaches, and I think Frank Martin's criminally underrated, but I don't know why. This is how we're ending it. Buddy Hield, good player. De'Aaron Fox is going to be a King.
Stephen Curry-like.
Yes, and Miles Bridges, I'm going to be owning a Kings jersey with his name on the back. Anyways, Tell us what you think of the Kings' future down below. Is Buddy Hield the cornerstone for the Kings' future? I'm interested in what this comment section could be like, because I think it's going to be one way or the other, saying we're complete idiots or we hit the nail on the head. So it's going to be interesting. We talk Bulls, we talk Kings, we talk Warriors. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much. If you downloaded us, thank you so much. If you're watching YouTube, don't forget the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But for Dave Oster, Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Oh, shit. It's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.